Warning, this podcast is intended for consenting adults. We're talking about all things non-monogamy, which means some of our conversations are going to get down and dirty. Please know we are not professionals, and these are strictly our views and opinions and in no way represent the opinions of our employers. We respect others' opinions as we know everyone in the world of non-monogamy does it differently. Hope you enjoy.
Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of 3 Shades Deeper. I'm your host, Anthony Grayman, and as always, I have my beautiful wife,
Pinky Grayman.
and unfortunately, we do not have my salacious girlfriend and Pinky's soul sister, Ava Moore, joining us because mom life, #momlife is a thing, and we needed to record this, and you are missed.
Greatly.
Yes, but we're going to chug along and get through this. So, as everybody knows, Deeper goes into Pinky's wheelhouse of things. Well, she enjoys all of the salacious stories and the play and all these things, but you really enjoyed like diving into things and like getting to the all the way down to the bone, gnawing into the bone, the gristle.
Yeah, that kind of a thing is definitely something I love, because how else you gonna deal with your fears if you don't dissect the frog, you know?
Dissecting the frog, exactly. So one of the things that people who have probably heard the podcast or anything to do with non-monogamy or sexuality, there are kind of two things that I think come to their head. The first one is Tantra.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is Kama Sutra. And I believe a lot of people think that those two things are one and the same thing. I'm tantric. I practice the Kama Sutra. And they believe that they're talking about the same thing. But you happen to meet somebody on one of our many adventures that kind of shed a light to us that they're not really the same thing. They're different. And you've had some interesting conversations, and we decided to invite them onto the podcast to kind of really dispel a lot of those misconceptions. So without further ado, we would like to introduce you to our two guests, Mikhayla and Kaitlin. Hey,
Hi,
ladies, how are
guys.
you?
Marvelous.
Hello.
Thank
Doing
you.
fabulously.
Thank you for joining us. And once again, we apologize. Sorry that Ava's not here, but hopefully 2 Shades of Gray will kind of get through all of this.
Perfect. We love it. So good to see you both.
Good to see you as well. So let you introduce yourselves both. So we'll start with Mikhayla.
Hello, everyone. What a pleasure to be joining y'all today. My name is Mikhayla Harrell, and I'm an ERYT 500 yoga instructor, art teacher, creativity mentor, and retreat leader with more than 24 years of experience teaching yoga, meditation, and embodiment practices. I really focus on interweaving precise alignment with non-dual tantric philosophy in my yoga and embodiment classes, and that is what has led me deeper into the philosophy of Tantra and the practical applications of the Kama Sutra.
Hi, I'm Kaitlin Nolan. I am a yoga teacher, an intimacy coach, and just a general sex nerd. One of my main focuses in teaching yoga is making yoga practices accessible for people in all bodies. That's a huge passion of mine. And through my intimacy coaching work, I've really enjoyed showing people how they can use the practices of the Kama Sutra to really enhance their sex lives and just their enjoyment of life and pleasure.
Thank you very much for the introduction. And I have a question for you, Kaitlin. You say that you are a sex nerd, and we actually interviewed a sex geek
Ooh.
on one of our
Yes.
other episodes. So who do you think is better, nerds or geeks?
I love them both. I personally, but I am a bisexual, polyamorous person, so don't ask me to make any choices ever. So I'm always going to say yes and.
I love
Okay.
that. I
We'll
love
we'll
that.
leave that for the comments section, What's better to be a nerd or a geek, because
What about you? Because
I plead the fifth on this one. I want to hear what the audience has to say about it, but just throwing that out there. So, Mikhayla, we're going to start with you. So, if you had to give a definition to what Tantra is to
Our
adults,
vanilla friends.
our vanilla friends. Yeah, you know what? We'll talk to vanilla friends who don't know anything about it. How would you describe it and not scare them away?
Yeah, well, it's actually very interesting. I would describe just on the upshot Tantra as a tapestry, and sex is one beautiful thread in that tapestry. But if you only experience that and focus on that, you kind of miss the richness of the whole weave. And so part of that weave is the sacred in sexuality. And it's really about going deeper and being expansive in partnership, not just with your partner, but with yourself, with your connection, and just thinking about how you can be in yoga, be in ethical non monogamy, and celebrate a non dual philosophy. So, Tantra kind of expels the myth of good or bad, black and white, and really looks at kind of a dance, which is what is the word is lila in Tantra, which means the play of the universe, right? The play of the shadow side, the play of the light, and how that kind of shows itself, not just through your sexuality, but your whole living experience.
So you mentioned tapestry, and it's kind of like bringing different patterns, colors, other things together. And the question I had was, you were saying connection. So my thing, and I think maybe some other people are asking, connection specifically to what?
Right. So the word Tantra actually means to weave or to expand the weave. So the very kind of like core etymology of the idea is about this the woven threads. What are we weaving towards? What is this tapestry of? The tapestry is us. It's our embodied selves. It is our spiritual practice, our sexual practice, our everyday humdrum realities. It's weaving all of these things into kind of a gesture of reverence and of humility and of joy and celebration. One of the things that really aligns with my belief system in the poly world and the swinger world is that everyone is filled with innate goodness. And that's one of the core principles of Tantra, is that we're always going to see the good first in situations and in ourselves, and then work from there. So it's really like Tantra, if you just throw that word out right now, or if you were to do a quick Google search on it, it's a lot more popular than it was even 5 years ago. You're going to find lead articles by, of course, Wikipedia, but also WebMD, the British Museum, Medical News Today. People are talking about Tantra more than they ever really have in the Western world. And, you're going to find these salacious images and videos of the pop culture idea of Tantra in the West.
Mm-hmm.
But Tantra isn't just about sex and creative lovemaking. It's really a complex philosophical system with incredible universal revelations. And those revelations are about the power of our differences and the creativity that stems from that.
So it is possible for somebody to be a tantric chef or a tantric
Masseuse? Definitely.
masseuse.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Absolutely. And, in the West right now, there's so much that this word Tantra is being used as, like, for example, the tantric chef or the tantric masseuse. The tantric chef might really focus on a sensorial experience with their cooking. maybe they're doing it naked, but maybe they're also really focusing on the textures and the flavors,
As
right? And
some
how those are going to stimulate people.
as somebody who enjoys cooking, I do not recommend doing that naked. Just putting it out there because
But you can have an
safety
apron,
first.
Apron in the front and then the
Yeah.
butt is open. I love that
Yeah.
shit.
Business in the
We
front.
did that.
party in the
Remember,
back.
we did that.
When did we do that?
Oh, we've never done that.
Yeah, we've never done that. No, we want people to still.
I thought we did that.
No, we did not. I still want people to enjoy meals that I make, and I am clothed appropriately while I'm cooking. So we're gonna.
Between you and I, you can be nude to me.
Oh, I can.
I love that.
But yeah, fire in certain parts of my body. I am not, nothing against fire play, but cooking and hot oil and all of those things. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Safety first.
Absolutely.
Safety first.
Tantra really kind of got its role in the 80s and 90s here in the United States. And that's where we started seeing what's called urban or new Tantra popping up as this practice in the West of sacred sex, and how to improve your love life. And this goes right into the Kama Sutra. But traditionally, Tantra comes from around 400 BCE is when the first texts were found. And it's about this non-dual philosophy that teaches that everything, including such sexuality, is divine. And so, yeah, cooking can be a divine act. Massage can be a divine act. Doing the dishes, can be a divine act. If you think of just those mindfulness practices of the Zen koan, chop wood, carry water, that can be a divine act. And it's just the awareness of that and bringing that awareness of divinity into our everyday lives.
I love that. I love that. Carrying water or doing dishes with awareness of it. I actually was doing dishes and I was literally singing, I am blessed. I am blessed.
Perfect.
Yeah.
There are some really great ways to get into this nouveau Tantra. Like Margot Anand is a really famous author who's written lots and lots of books about tantric sexuality in the last 20 years, and just creating different ways to prolong arousal, creating sensual rituals with people, and conscious touching. And this kind of Tantra is really blended with the Kama Sutra and New Age psychology. So it's appealing, but also it reduces it to kind of a set of erotic practices, which is great. And it's fine. It's a great way for people to get into it.
Okay, so since you brought up the Kama Sutra, are Tantra and Kama Sutra the same? Are they different? Are they complementary? Is one an umbrella? How would we, even in non-monogamy, we talk about hierarchies and non-hierarchies. Is it hierarchical, non-hierarchical? What would be a simple way? As it's not necessarily, I don't think these topics are just necessarily all simple all by themselves.
Well, I'll jump in, and it's a really exciting and fun question to answer, and then Kaitlin can chime in too. So in terms of like the physical texts, they're separate and they're not connected. But as we probably, at least Kaitlin and I know from our experience, they do fold over each other quite seamlessly. So they're both two different texts. They are not related in that way. And Tantra was really founded long before the Kama Sutra was created. And I think that if we were to do a hierarchy, the umbrella would be Tantra, and Kama Sutra would fall under that umbrella, and weave back up into it. So it's kind of the bigger picture is the container is Tantra, and then the Kama Sutra is one of the growths from that perspective of divinity and pleasure being just as important as hard work. And and I think in our Protestant society in the United States, we're just so taught that like we're suffering, we have to suffer, we're innately bad, we're innately born with sin. And so for me, this was just such a radical way to view the world and myself that is so much more about self-love and acceptance of myself and others, that allows for the play in the Kama Sutra to really show up and go off.
So Tantra can be kind of used for anything. We talked about cooking or massage or doing this, where Kama Sutra would be more focused on pleasure, and that's the more sexual or sensual or intimate side, so to speak.
Yes, but
But yes.
I can jump in here. Um, so my understanding as more of a Tantra layperson is that Tantra is a complex philosophy, and Kama Sutra is one book. And Kama means pleasure. So this book is focused just on pleasure. Now, in the Kama Sutra, they do talk about how you have to balance pleasure with moral duty, spiritual freedom, pursuit of wealth. All these things have to be in balance. You can't only pursue pleasure, or you can't only pursue material wealth. All these things need to be in alignment. And so, yes, the Kama Sutra is one book that is focused entirely on how to live a pleasurable life in all realms, not just in sex, how to bring pleasure into your house, into your relationship. And the Tantra is this enormous philosophy concept that can be applied to so many different things. Spot on.
I like
Yeah.
that description a lot.
Okay.
Because what
spot
we
on.
know in the Western society, and even though I was born in Central Asia, it still was limited understanding of Kama Sutra equals sex. That is all I was aware of until I started diving it in.
And if you talk to anybody, that's going to be the first thing. It's just like, you say Kama Sutra and they're like, I have arthritis, I can't bend. It's
Totally, yes. And it is a book that's focused on pleasure, but there are 7 chapters in this book, and only one of them is the chapter on sexual union, which is where Mikhayla and I have focused most of our research, because we wanted to bring this partnered yoga Kama Sutra practice to folks in the form of a workshop. But there are 6 other chapters that are about completely other topics that you can pursue pleasure within.
Is it something to do with 7 chakras?
Oh, that's a great question. So the chakras actually go back to Tantra. So Tantra is really heavy. This is kind of boring for a sexy podcast, but Tantra is all about meditation.
Yeah.
And that meditation includes visualization of opening up different channels in your body, which are also called chakras. And those chakras can be ignited, they can be dimmed out, right? So when we're pursuing more sexual liaisons, we really want to open up the bottom half, open up the heart, let the mind be clear. And these practices can be enhanced if there's a meditation or a visualization practice around those channels before we even begin.
Yeah, I definitely want to say that before I go into anything of sexual realm with few of my partners, we do dive deep into breathing. And that actually centers us and we sync, and then we move into whatever we're doing. That's just like one part of how I find connection starting for me. And I could be a weirdo, I mean, I don't know. It just feels good to me. It works.
We agree. We brought that into the Kama Sutra workshop, the co-breathing with partner, because we also believe in that. It really enhances the experience. But to bring it back to the question about the 7 chapters of the Kama Sutra and the 7 chakras, the 7 chapters are about different aspects of life that a well-to-do Indian gentleman would be wondering about, and how they would recommend for him to pursue pleasure within those topics. So think about the Kama Sutra as like the Men's Health, the Cosmopolitan magazine of the 3rd century. That's the best way I can just translate it easily for people to understand. But other topics were like how to get a wife, how to deal with other men's wives, how your multiple wives might deal with each other, things like that. And so there's a lot of recommendations in there for how men would handle these situations, but also how women would have agency in these relationships as well. So yeah, it's sort of like men's health sex advice.
Can I do like a switch 180? So how men and women's lives need to connect to each other, because I have multiple partners. And it's so funny, like it's okay for men to have it, but it's not so okay to have for women to have it. It's so like such a, which I'm bringing something different, but it's still connected, debunking this whole idea of, if you're a woman and you have multiple partners, you're a whore. But if you're a man and you have multiple partners, women girlfriends, whatever, you are what do you call
Stud.
a stud?
Playboy.
Yeah, like a legion, whatever you call it. What is it in French? So yeah, it's just like discrepancies everywhere. We have to change that. And we love our men, like there's nothing about that. I'm just saying, like, how this one of the ideas why this podcast was born is because I wanted to promote women's health, women's education, an acknowledgement of course, without you guys, for me, for my community, I love men and I love women. We have to work cohesively, not putting one or each other, one person down or the other one up. There's no up or down. If we are synced together and we move together, we will rise so much farther than if I've been in a relationship where, women coming from Jewish household where women were put down and, you're dirty, whatever. You have to go to mikveh before you're going to be a consensual, you're going to be intimately involved with somebody, with your husband or whatever. It's just so demeaning. And for me, like, to understand that it's such a way of not how I wanted to live my life anymore, and breaking away from it and saying, this is not what women is all about. We are goddesses.
There's more than one
when we
way.
bleed, motherfucker, we bring world into this life. Like there's beauty within. So I'm sorry, just went on tangent.
Oh,
Bring me
thank
back.
you so much for that. No, that's great.
And it weaves in.
It totally ties in. It ties
Mm-hmm.
into Tantra again. So, Anthony brought up the hierarchy that we know in poly relationships, and also in our cultures here in the Western world. And that's one really cool visual. So those hierarchies, through how society has been set up, are like a ladder, right? There's things on top and then things that are below. And what I hear you saying, Pinky, is like the women continue to be put at the bottom rung and shamed, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. What's cool about Tantra is it is a horizontal spectrum. It is no longer a vertical spectrum. So if you think of the infinity symbol, right, and we are just somewhere on that path, and we're going to move on that path throughout our lifetimes, right? But it's just continuous, and everyone is equal on that flow.
I love
And that's
that.
that divine goddess, embracing that divine goddess is what I'm all about as well. And I feel like all women need to feel lifted up in their divinity, as do men.
Yeah.
Like we all need to find that inner divinity and celebrate it with play with each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Kama Sutra is really revolutionary in this respect as well. It's such an old book. You would think that women would be way less equal, but the Kama Sutra advocates that sex should be pleasurable for women. It's not just about procreation, it's about pleasure. And I read one translation that said, like, you should make your female partner come like 6 times before you even think about penetration. And so, through study of the Kama Sutra, we can really find ways to connect deeper with our partners. If, everyone is equal in pleasure, then everyone is going to have a better experience. When women are liberated, they're going to have better sex. You're going to have better sex with them.
And I think part of it is it'll be a better world, because a joke that I tell people and I'll share is, when was the last time you had an orgasm and you were really pissed off? Or thought like it's almost physically impossible to come, and then like, I'm gonna beat it's even if it's for the microsecond of that release, like you just feel everything is good, your body is all tingly and this, and I speak for me because I don't know what goes on in other people's, but I know the last thing I'm thinking about is something, horrible to do to somebody or hurting. I'm thinking like, oh, this is the greatest feeling. I just want to stay here and enjoy it and just ride the wave of it. But that's just me.
I want to.
I think that's our brain, actually. I think that is what scientifically is happening for all of us. And so, yes, 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 yes. Like, let's experience that pleasure. And the act of sex can help us get to that place. What a joy.
I wanted to ask a specific question. Specifically, how it resonates for non-monogamous relationship, because we are a non-monogamous podcast.
I think that the teachings of the Kama Sutra can be applied to any type of relationship, whether it's monogamous, non-monogamous, same sex, a triad, whatever it is. What the book really advocates for is slowing down and taking your time. And Pinky, you were in the workshop. We
Yes.
brought people through the 8 different subjects in the Kama Sutra in the chapter on sexual union. It's not just crazy positions. They talk about different ways of kissing, different ways
Yeah.
of touching,
Yeah.
how you can scratch your partner, what kind of sounds you should make. And so these can be applied to any type of relationship, and anyone can benefit from maybe trying something new or just taking your time, or just it's like taking a different path to work, like let's see what we can see if we go this route.
And I think that feeds right into the non-monogamy, just in terms of, how can our sexual acts not just be about the climax, but how, like, not only does the Kama Sutra really ask us to slow down, like that's our whole mission, is to just get people to breathe and slow down with each other and explore. And that's much more of a process emphasis rather than the product of coming, which we know and love. But how can we really titillate and draw the sensations out as much as possible, to show and receive, to give and receive pleasure?
And what better for couples who are non-monogamous to really show their partner that time and attention? Like, yeah, of course we have other partners, but the time we have together, this is like really special, us two, and we're going to take our time getting there. There's absolutely no rush. And I think it can be a really beautiful journey.
Yeah, it
We
is
talked
definitely.
We talked too a lot. We've been thinking a lot about like how intimidating the Kama Sutra can feel to people. Like if you just do a quick Google search, or if you get a book from the library, you buy a book off of Amazon, it's going to have all these insane positions in it. And we really, like Kaitlin said, want to make this accessible to all bodies. And it really is. A lot of the positions aren't as crazy as you think. They're probably things you've already done. But it's really about the preparation of how we prepare ourselves consciously with one another. And then really, slowing down to talk each other through the situation and be playful. If you think of like a really fun game of Twister, that's basically what's going on here in the sheets.
Twister is a very fun game. Better naked.
Better naked indeed. Yeah.
So, we've been talking about both the Tantra and Kama Sutra, and I think we've at least dispelled a couple of myths, particularly on the tantric side. One, Tantra doesn't necessarily have anything to do with sex solely. Tantra is not the Kama Sutra. Tantra is not an escape from your body. And Tantra, you don't really need to have a partner. Are any of these resonating with you now? Are we kind of getting through some of those myths that are out there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to elaborate just a little bit on the Tantra is not about shaming the body, or I think it's really important for people to remember, again, just like looking back to our own roots of how we were raised, is that Tantra doesn't believe in like a nirvana or a satori. we all have probably experienced some kind of little satori in the orgasm, right? It's the petite mort, it's the little death. But what Tantra is really trying to encourage people to think about, like, is like, this is the party. We're in it now. Like, this is it. This is the moment. And like, let's live it to the fullest and the juiciest that we possibly can. Because we're in the throes of it all. We're in the dance.
Yeah. Another myth that comes into mind, Tantra equals religion.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. We were chuckling about that today. Because we're thinking about like folks who have really strong religious backgrounds, and they might feel like Tantra or the Kama Sutra would be something that would not fit in with their
It would
beliefs.
be opposite to with a lot of religions, you kind of have to choose one. And so whatever religion they are, if they start doing some of the practices, it's almost seen sacrilegious.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's one perspective that one can have. I'd really like to offer that Tantra and the Kama Sutra and yoga, and even I'd go so far as to say Buddhism, these are not religions. These are practices for living, waking people to embody their experiences. So as yoga teachers, like, I've certainly taught devout Catholic and different religious Muslim people, and they have been able to negotiate like that these are spiritual practices and they're open to all. And if they're comfortable with that, then rock and roll.
I think they're absolutely compatible. It is not a set of religious beliefs. It's simply ways to make life pleasurable and joyful, and sort of bring like to romanticize your life, just slowing down. And I think that most people who are religious would find that these fit in nicely with that, unless their religion says they can't have sex. Then I don't know. I don't know what to tell them.
I don't know any religion that necessarily says not to have sex, just, they might, and that's
They'll have a lot
even,
of restrictions, but
they might have restrictions on manner and certain different things and certain whatever, but it's at the very least, I think every religion understands that sex is necessary, if not just for procreation. And that seems to be at least the bare minimum that any religion will go to. I don't know every religion, and on this podcast, we don't down anybody's religion, says it's your belief. But, we're hopefully giving information and just something to just think about and ponder and look at the situation from another perspective.
I love that. And I agree with you both. Well, all of us. I think we're on the same page. Is like, what are these tools? How can we apply them to our personal individualized lives and belief systems? Absolutely.
And some of it is foreign to a lot of us, right? And some of it, like, meditation, it's so beneficial. And to do it, I actually wanted to implement with hubby. He's more into BDSM and kink, so all this for him is like, whoa. But he's doing an amazing job. Thank you so much.
Woo-woo.
Yeah. Well, it's a process, and I think it's something that if it's foreign, you have to start somewhere, like a language, learning a language. You got to learn from vocabulary. from the letters first. So we are walking this together and learning each other's languages, and
Well, we're learning each other's languages, and there is I wouldn't say meditation, but there is a process, a state of being, of going into a scene, so to speak, of, if you're not mentally there going into the scene, it's not going to be enjoyable for you as the top, but it can also become not pleasurable for the bottom. And depending on the activity, if you're not focused and you're not thinking on it, it can be very harmful.
dangerous.
The
Yeah.
dangerous. So there are a lot of things, and I can see where we're talking about tapestry and Tantra, and it's woven into it. It finds its way
Yeah, it's a
throughout
mindset.
all of these practices, or I wouldn't say BDSM is a practice, so to speak, but all of these
Oh no, it
activities.
is.
It
No,
is. It is. It is.
Yeah.
Yes. It is
And
a practice.
subspace can be meditative.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in because I'm a huge BDSM fan too, Anthony. And like as a bottom, when I am in that dance with a partner, it can be completely meditative, and that breathing that you do together, that communicating you do together, that's all a part of Tantra and Kama Sutra as well. And you know, the intentionality that goes behind just setting up a space and a scene before it
Mhm.
happens, that's part of that as well. It's a ritual that you create with another human being. And that's what's cool too about like breaking this idea of the heteronormativity of the Kama Sutra, right? This can be done, these scenes, these practices can be done with anyone, and in any combination. So like in New Orleans, we have such a rich queer um, E&M scene, that this stuff just fits in perfectly with all different types of people, whether they're subbing or doming or just practicing different types of kissing.
That's amazing.
And I think that what I've always admired about BDSM is how much, as Mikhayla said, intentionality, the discussion prior, how much thought gets put into a scene. And I always wish that people who are having vanilla sex put the same intentionality into it that kinky people were. I was like, we're missing out on so much juicy goodness. Like, just talking about, oh, I'm gonna do this to you later, and then like, oh wow, it was so great when you did that to me. Like all of that adds, it adds to how like sexy and juicy it is. And the practices of the Kama Sutra give you a little bit of that. And if you use Kama Sutra in your sex life, it can be as vanilla or as kinky as you want. Like there's a lot of pretty kinky stuff in the Kama Sutra, and I'm sure you remember, Pinky, we did the color system during the
Yes.
practice because we did scratching and striking and I really and biting, and I really wanted everyone to feel very comfortable. But I had discovered how much I like scratching through the Kama Sutra study, and I never knew that before, even though I've been like kinky for years. I was like, how come I didn't know how much I like being scratched? And so I really wanted to give everyone else that same chance of discovery and to give them a communication system with their partner. And
Well,
so I think in that way, BDSM is very compatible with the Kama Sutra.
and as we're sitting here and talking, and everything is being woven, if people are listening to it and you're seeing how all this conversation is kind of getting together, and we're making this one huge picture, the way that I'm seeing it, just hearing your description, is that the Kama Sutra is a cookbook, and you will go and you'll pick up and you'll look in the book, and you see certain recipes and you're like, oh, I can do this when I come home from a long day at work. Let me try this. There's some in there like, okay, well, you're not going to start out your first time, especially as a brand new chef, necessarily like, I'm going to do beef Wellington or duck l'orange or something like that's something that would require
Can't even pronounce
a
that.
little more planning and other things. But you look through a cookbook and you're like, well, no, that one is that one has needs Reaper peppers. Like that's too spicy for me. I'm not making that.
It's a great analogy.
I love
Anthony.
that.
Yeah.
Love it.
I love him seeing that this world that I love is not so separated from the world that he's been living over the last 25 years. I appreciate that greatly.
I know it's not different, but I'm seeing it through a different lens, or a different point of view, which is good, because I think what happens is, and I have the same thing speaking with individuals that I share, that I'm in BDSM, and they're like, oh no, I can't do that. And I say, well, if your partner smacks you on the butt, do you like that? Like, yeah, well, you might be interested in impact play. And it also goes to when Pinky thought that with Ava, like I say, hey, where you're doing impact scenes, she's thinking in her mind that I have a Louisville Slugger and I'm just whacking away. But when she actually saw what was going on and what is impact can be, you can do impact with a feather if you want. It's more sensory, but if I hit somebody with a feather, that might be as much as they can take and tolerate. It doesn't always have to be a 2x4.
Yeah, I was crying the first time I saw it because I had so much compersion. I was so happy to see that.
Oh,
Yeah, I really enjoy that a lot. I love the idea of expanding and wolving things together and seeing how things do connect and how sometimes we are just not aware of it. And this conversation really brings it home again and again and again that, we just all want to receive pleasure. How to get there this is a pathway. You can educate yourself about it. Once again, dissect the frog. It's not that hard. You don't have to dive in deep if you don't want to. You can keep it light, or you can really dive in deep if you want to, research and whatever, analyze, and then bring it to your partner and experiment to whatever level you both are comfortable with. Very much so. Boundaries, important. But the idea of exploration for me is it's a high turn on. I cannot say any other way to say that.
same. Exploration and willingness, open-mindedness, right? And really bow to both of you for being open-minded about thinking about this, and that pulsation you were talking about in this weaving, Pinky. There's a word for that too in Sanskrit, and the word is spanda. And spanda is the pulsation of the expansion and the contraction, right? So when you feel that pulsing in your back or your ass when you've been spanked really hard, right? That is just a reverberation of this play that's happening. This pulsation of the contraction and expansion that's happening else. Yes, we want to expand in our pleasure, but we also want to pull in and hold that as something sacred. And even more so, these practices, they can be done with partners, but they can also be done as a ritualization of our self-care practices and how we pleasure ourselves. We can we can use these techniques from the Kama Sutra and from Tantra, whether it's through meditation or touching ourselves, whatever we need to do to give ourselves pleasure. These practices can enhance that as well.
So, for those that are listening, how would you? I think we touched on it, but kind of wrapping up everything that we're talking about. Somebody who is brand new to, and we're just going to talk on the Tantra part. Brand new to Tantra, they're listening to this and they're just like, I'm interested. I want to explore this a little bit more. What resources would you suggest for them to look into, or even just a simple thing that you can tell them right now, like they're listening, and if you're really interested in this, why don't you start with this one thing, and then, you can build on it. Like if there's a foundational, almost like with yoga, you will have child pose. That's like a
Right.
very simple beginning where anybody who is interested, they'll kind of start there, and they're not going to be doing Warrior 3 or all of these other different poses right then and there. How would you start, or how
I
could somebody
would,
start?
there's not really a book that is accessible, that is an easy way to be here, read this book first, right? Lots of people are not going to be interested in looking at Tantra through a scriptural perspective. But I would say just start thinking about this idea of embracing everything, all states, joy, pain, pleasure, grief, as an expression of the divine. Just thinking about that a little bit differently. And then going in towards doing some visualizations and meditation practices. You can find these type of practices on my website, right, that do chakra work, that talk about the different layers of self that we work with in Tantra and how to get into those divine bliss states. But meditation, breathing, and exploring the divinity in all things, I would say would be the jumping off point, including your partner. Looking at the things that really get under your skin about yourself or your partner, and looking at those with a divine lens of how is this a teacher for me? How is this bringing me closer to my connection?
And Kaitlin, on the Kama Sutra part, how would you, besides going and, getting a Men's Health or a Cosmo book magazine subscription, what would you suggest somebody who wants to explore this, a place for them to start?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Well, if they are local to New Orleans or ever like to travel to New Orleans, they can certainly check me and Mikhayla's website for our workshop that we offer regularly. My website's pleasureandpractice.com. Pinky, maybe we could have you link our information.
Definitely. Would love that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. And but what I would really suggest is to create an erotic ritual with your partner. And I just made an erotic ritual playbook that I will also have on my website so folks can check it out and they can get that sent to their inbox. But yeah, something as simple as after dinner, taking a walk with your partner and holding hands. And that just shows you that intimacy can be outside of the bedroom too. And you can be present with them and you can be mindful with them. Perhaps it is something like we did in the Kama Sutra workshop where we had partners putting their foreheads against each other and syncing their breath and just maybe putting a hand on the chest or the back, things like this that are very simple. There's also like really nice, just like caressing of the hand, taking turns like 3 minutes, giving your partner different types of sensation, and maybe even using that kind of scale, where like you use a color system where if you like more sensation or less sensation, where you can open up a communication as well, because communication is huge as part of this. When you're playing around with Kama Sutra and with BDSM, you need to know like how light, how hard do they want this. So these are like really simple ways we can just add little rituals into our lives and to enhance our connection.
So if anybody hasn't heard or noticed that you guys are located in New Orleans, and
That's how we met.
That's how,
Yeah.
that's how we met, and we all met at Naughty,
Mm-hmm.
and you guys give your workshops. Pinky was able to enjoy your workshop. I actually was across the hall finding more implements and devices for my BDSM practice. But yeah, we'll definitely be putting in the show notes how people, our listeners, can get in contact with you and get more information. Something else that a little birdie told me is that you guys are planning a trip.
We are. We're really excited.
Yeah.
We have a wonderful friend here in town who is from Iceland and part of our community. And we've decided to do a trip this winter for the Aurora Borealis to practice Kama Sutra in Iceland and do hot springs and adventuring in a very cozy, delightful setting. So we will have that information on our websites. We've got that trip coming up. And then we'll also be doing another weekend workshop for the Kama Sutra here in New Orleans in the spring.
Wow.
Yeah, so we will definitely make sure that people can find you guys, and who knows, maybe we will end up at one of those events.
Yes, love that.
Yes.
We would absolutely love that.
Yes.
One thing we didn't talk about at all, and I don't know if you guys are interested in it at all, but just one thing that is important to Kaitlin and I is recognizing the awareness of cultural appropriation when we're talking about Tantra and the Kama Sutra, being two American white women. Is that something that you would like us to chat about just briefly, and where we get our material from and how we reconcile with that through our yoga practices?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
No. Yes.
So this is something that both Mikhayla and I have discussed as white yoga teachers, and something that's been near and dear to my heart, that when I'm doing practices that have deep cultural roots in another culture, it's really important to me that I'm learning from folks who are of that culture. So when I became a yoga teacher, I started following a lot of yoga teachers and philosophy teachers who are of South Asian descent, and started listening to them and what they recommend, so that I could adequately appreciate these practices and not strip them of their cultural heritage. And through our study of the Kama Sutra, Mikhayla and I were both spending some time with Seema Anand, who is a scholar of the Kama Sutra of South Asian descent. And I think that's really important that we acknowledge that this does come from a different culture, and we are aware and deeply committed to
yes.
that honoring and that listening that needs to happen. And just to keep in mind, like the Kama Sutra, the most popular translation of the Kama Sutra was translated in 1848 by a British explorer. That's still what is on the bookshelves. So really diving deep, like for me, on the philosophy side, going into the Oxford University and looking for people who are Southeast Asian, who are doing the research and the retranslating of the Kama Sutra now. So that's important to me and to Kaitlin, is to just keep the thread of the lineage present and spoken, because we are just observers, and we want to carry this message because we believe strongly in it, but we want to do so with real reverence and care. Absolutely. We are not experts in the Kama Sutra. We are two yoga teacher sex nerds who really connected with this material, and so we want to share it with folks the best we know how, and yeah, to do that in the right way.
That is so beautiful. I can definitely feel your both energy and how much purpose you both have, and intuition to keep it close to the roots as much as possible. That is so important. Because I've been taking yoga. I've been doing yoga most of my life, and I've seen some crazy things here. And it's not yoga. This is monkey business. And sometimes we do need some, like aerobics and whatever. But sometimes I just wanted to breathe and just sit. And it's something that it's important to me. So I go away to my retreats, yoga retreats, and slow down and just like, yeah, it's okay. You don't need to have vinyasa flow that you have to do handstands and whatever on constantly. Even though I do love my headstands.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there is somebody that I was listening to, and Sadhguru,
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah.
And a question that he was bringing up is that somebody went somewhere and the person said, oh yeah, I know like 30 or 40 different poses. And he kind of said, well, I know, argument's sake, I know only 2. But he's saying the person that practices 2 and can do them flawlessly is probably as on par. I don't know if he's saying it's better or not, and don't come at me in the comments, people. I'm just trying to bring something
I'll back
around.
you up, Anthony, because in yoga, it's not about what the product is of those poses. It's about the experience you're having in your body. It's about the breath and the presence and the connection. Yoga means union. And so when you strip yoga of that presence and that connection, and it's just an exercise, then it's not yoga anymore. The balance is lost. And we're all about the balance. The good, the bad, and the balance.
Yeah, I liked when I was taking a nude yoga with you, Mikhayla. That was really beautiful. How different people with their different abilities could and couldn't do what you were asking them, and how you modified for them. That was such a beautiful, easy flow. Like you just were so present. I appreciate that, because everybody's different, body's different. Like it's like not everybody can bend. And, not to say that I can bend much, but, just saying there's different levels, and breaking down to the mass. It's one of the hardest thing to do in anything.
Thank you so much, Pinky. That's so thoughtful and sweet. And like, what a great antidote for the craziness of our world and our lives right now of not really having any opportunity to slow down.
Yeah.
Everyone is just so maxed out on so many ways. So like taking the time to be mindful with your partner, to be mindful with yourself, and then play. That's a big commitment for people these days to carve out enough space to do that. But the rewards are just so enormous in terms of pleasure, enjoyment, and fulfillment in our lives.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. So to sum it all up, I think the biggest thing is Tantra is not about sex. It's so much more. There's presence, pleasure, wholeness, and weaving life into sacredness. Am I getting that right?
Absolutely.
All right. So we would like to thank both you, Mikhayla, and Kaitlin for spending the time with us, sharing your experience and your knowledge. Once again, before we leave, if each of you can say where our listeners can find you.
We'll put that all in the show notes.
Show notes, but if you want to say it out, what's your website, Mikhayla?
My website is starblossomlife.com. Starblossom Life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm at pleasureandpractice.com. And they can also find me on Instagram at pleasure.in.practice.
All right. So we want to thank you again for spending the time with us and enlightening us. I wish that Ava was here to join because she has another perspective, and I'm sure she would have had a couple other questions or some other insight. But we're going to actually record. I'm sorry, not listen, but we're going to record because, as you mentioned before, I think we mentioned it, or we might have been mentioning it before we started and hit record. Ava was away at a Tantra retreat. So we will be asking her all about this, and maybe we'll have to have a part 2 with you ladies back again.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And I am looking forward to going with you there next year.
Thank you both so much for having us.
Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to visit our website at 3shadesofgrey.com. That's the number 3shadesofgrey.com, and sign up for updates, exclusive content, and more. Want to keep this vibe going? Follow us on our socials at 3_shadesgrey, at AvaMoore_3shades, and don't forget to check out Pinky and her salacious, soul-stirring poems over at Polly_poet. Until next time, stay salacious.